I never imagined my act of testing her loyalty would reveal a heartbreaking truth. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced as I sat on the edge of my bed, the familiar shadows of doubt creeping into my mind. The sun was setting, casting an eerie glow through the window, making the dust in the air shimmer like 1,000 tiny stars. But all I could see was darkness. Jess had always been my rock. She had laughter that could light up the room and eyes that sparkled with secrets. But lately, I sensed a distance, a barrier I couldn't touch. Perhaps it was paranoia. Or perhaps it was real. I needed to know. So, I played a dangerous game. I thought it was harmless. I thought it was clever. I texted her, pretending to be someone else, curious to see if she would mention me. Each ping of my phone sent shivers down my spine. My fingers trembled as I typed the fake message, the weight of deceit heavy in my chest. I imagined her reaction. Would she laugh? Would she confide in this stranger? My heart pounded like a drum, each beat echoing the fear of betrayal. As the minutes ticked by, silence filled the room like a thick fog. I held my breath, desperate for a reply. And then it came. The screen illuminated her name, but what she wrote made my blood run cold. I can't believe he wants to come back now. The words hung in the air, sharp as a knife. My breath caught in my throat. Who was coming back? Why was this a secret? Each question spiraled, tightening the knot in my stomach. I could feel the walls of my room closing in, suffocating me in this bubble of confusion and pain. In that moment, I understood. The game I played had backfired with a vengeance. I had crossed a line I didn't even know existed. The trust we built over years felt flimsy, like glass on the verge of shattering. I thought about her smile, her warmth, and how easily everything could slip through my fingers. I needed to confront her, but doubts flooded my mind. What if I was wrong? What if I was about to lose her forever? My world felt like it was spinning out of control, teetering on the edge of despair. As night fell, the air turned electric with anticipation. I glanced at my phone again, and there it was, another message from her. But this time, my hands shook not from fear, but from the urgency to know the truth. What was she hiding? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The room was cloaked in darkness, wrapping around me like a heavy shroud. I barely registered the message on my screen, the words a blur as panic gripped my heart. How had I let it come to this? Why hadn't I trusted Jess? The shadows of doubt danced in my mind, the reflection of my betrayed thoughts torturing me. The sudden ping again jolted me into action. I gripped the phone tightly, my breath shallow as I opened the message. I know you think this is over, but it's not. I'll always be here. Who was she talking about? The words slithered through my consciousness like an insidious fog. My instincts screamed at me to leap into the abyss and ask her directly, but fear held me captive. What if the truth was worse than I could imagine? I wanted to believe that Jess was innocent, that my fears were baseless, but what if I was merely clinging to an illusion? I needed clarity, and as I paced my dimly lit room, I wrestled with a choice that felt like it would define my life. I could confront her now, demanding honesty and risking everything we had, or I could hold my breath longer, letting silence weave its destructive spell between us. Anxiety gnawed at me, every second heavy with uncertainty. At last, I made my decision. I would wait until morning, perhaps in the light of day, I would see things more clearly. But sleep evaded me, my mind a tumultuous sea of worry and regret. The clock ticked on, marking the passage of time like a relentless judge. Just before dawn, tiredness washed over me, and I finally collapsed into a restless slumber. When sleep came, it was fragmented and filled with a reflection of the turmoil in my heart. I found myself standing in front of an empty stage, the spotlight glaring down on me, my palms clammy and my pulse rapid. "Jess, just tell me the truth," I shouted, the echo of my voice muffled by an unyielding silence. The stage dissolved into mist, and I woke up, gasping for breath. The weight of despair pressed upon my chest, it was unbearable. Morning light slipped through the window, illuminating the room with a warm glow that felt foreign. I wanted to take comfort from it, but the shadows of my heart cloud loomed larger. I reminded myself of her laugh and the warmth of her hands. I held on to the memories like a lifeline, hoping they would guide me through the confusion that at last. I couldn't wait any longer. I texted Jess, each word tremulous and heavy, "We need to talk. Can you come over?" The response came almost immediately, "Sure, I'll be there in a bit." A knot tightened in my stomach, the moment of truth was approaching. The minutes dragged on, stretched thin by anxiety. I busied myself with mundane tasks, but every sound, the creaking floor, the chirping birds, even the distant hum of traffic felt heightened, taunting me with the weight of what was to come. When Jess arrived, her presence was like a jolt to my system. She looked radiant and anxious, and as she stepped inside, I could sense the tension between us. It was palpably an orchestra of unsaid words hovering in the air. "Hey," she said, her voice a fragile whisper. I studied her face, searching for any hint of what lay beneath the surface. "Jess, I've seen your messages. I know about him, whoever he is." The admission tasted bitter, but the truth demanded to be spoken. Her expression flickered, a kaleidoscope of emotions. "Please, let me explain," she pleaded, stepping closer as if needing to bridge the chasm I had created. But just then, I heard a sharp knock at the door. My heart leapt into my throat. Who could that be? I didn't want anyone else to cloud this moment. Jess seemed taken aback, her eyes widening in dread. "Don't," she said, putting a hand on my arm. "Please don't open it." But I was already moving toward the door, curiosity blurring the lines of my judgment. With shaking hands, I turned the handle and opened the door, my heart pounding. Standing on the threshold was a figure from my past, one I hadn't seen in years, the man whose return had ignited this entire conflagration of doubts and fears. His eyes met mine with an unsettling familiarity. And in that moment, everything I had believed about my love for Jess hung perilously in the balance. "Hello, old friend," he greeted with a sly smile, the air between us crackling with unease. Jess' face paled, the fear in her eyes mirroring my own. And suddenly, the ground beneath us felt less stable, the truth I had sought slipping further from my grasp. The silence that enveloped us was deafening, a heavy fog of unspoken fears and shattered trust. I stood frozen at the door, caught between the past and the present, while Jess, plagued with a look of horror, yanked her hand back from my arm as if it burned. "Jake," she whispered, the name hanging in the air like a death sentence. I could feel the blood drain from my face as memories rushed back, laughter on summer nights, secrets shared beneath the stars, the thrill of a friendship that had been overshadowed by unspoken emotions. I had thought he was gone, just another piece of my past buried beneath the weight of time. "What are you doing here?" I managed to stammer, my voice tinged with bewilderment. Jake stepped forward, sliding into the room as if he owned it, his smile confident and unsettling. "Just thought I'd come check on you, man." Heard some whispers. He darted his gaze toward Jess, his expression shifting, a predator eyeing his prey. "And I see you've been busy." Jess backed up another step, her eyes darting between us, her body tense. "What do you want, Jake?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. He chuckled, a sound that sent chills up my spine. "I just wanted to remind you of what you had," he replied, his eyes glimmering with a mix of amusement and something darker. "Things aren't always what they seem, are they?" The tension in the room thickened, and every instinct in me screamed to protect Jess from whatever twisted game he was playing. But I couldn't shake the feeling that opening that door had unleashed a torrent I was ill-prepared to confront. When I thought I had seen the full depth of my betrayal unraveling before me, Jake leaned closer, his tone conspiratorial. "Remember that summer? The secrets we shared?" He paused, allowing the weight of his words to hang, as if he held the final puzzle piece that could either mend or break my already frayed relationship with Jess. "Enough!" I exclaimed, stepping between them, my heart racing. "This isn't about you, Jake. Leave." "I don't think you understand," he said, his voice now cold and calculated. "Jess' past and yours are tangled. You need to know that before you decide to throw away what you have so blindly." "Stop it!" Jess cried out, tears shimmering in her eyes as she fought to maintain her composure. "You don't have to do this." But Jake pressed on, a smirk creeping across his face that was equal parts cruel and charming. "You're right. It is overwhelming, Jess. But who knows what he's capable of when the fog of confusion settles." In that moment, I felt the ground shift beneath me. Had my initial doubts been right? Was Jess really who I thought she was? My heart pounded in my chest, tearing between the loyalty I wanted to extend and the fear of betrayal simmering just beneath the surface. "Please, just be honest with me, Jess," I pleaded, my voice cracking. "What's going on?" Her shoulders slumped, and I finally caught a glimpse of the vulnerability beneath her strength. For a fleeting moment, I saw her as the scared girl I had fallen for, longing for support but terrified of the truth. "I didn't want you to know about him because I thought he was gone forever." "Gone?" I echoed, my stomach sinking. "You knew him?" She looked away, tears spilling down her cheeks. "It was a long time ago, before us. I thought it was over. I thought I was free." "Free?" Jake interjected mockingly, stepping into the spotlight of our confrontation. "You can't escape your past, Jess. I'm still here. I always will be." The gravity of his words crashed down upon me, and I suddenly felt the air evaporate from the room. I turned to Jess, desperation clawing at my insides. "What does this mean?" "It means," she hesitated, choking on her words, "that a part of me never truly let go. But I want to be with you. I swear." Jake scoffed, an unsettling grin spreading across his face. "Is that what you think, Jess? That's not how it was meant to end." A tense silence filled the space, heavy with looming threats and echoes of the past. I felt a pull in my chest, half drawn to her side, half afraid of the darkness lurking behind her. Could I still trust her? I looked at her, searching her face for honesty, for a hint of the girl I loved. Before I could respond, Jake produced a small object from his pocket, a plain key on a silver chain that seemed to glint ominously in the dim light. "This is a reminder of what could happen if you push me too far. All I need is for Jess to listen, to remember her choices." A chill ran down my spine as I realized how precariously we hung in the balance. With one swift motion, he tossed the key at me, and it landed with a heavy thud at my feet. "Don't say I didn't warn you," he said, his tone light as he stepped back toward the door. "You're in deeper than you think. Think wisely about how you choose to trust." And with that, he walked out, leaving a vacuum of tension in his wake. My heart raced, a cacophony of emotions swarming as I turned back to Jess. "What does that mean?" I asked, but the words barely left my lips before I saw the guilt etched in her expression, the battle between her past and present splintering the fragile peace we shared. Everything about our world shifted then, a clarity mixed with despair settled in. I was faced with an impossible choice, and as Jess began to speak, her voice trembled, the weight of unshared secrets threatening to drown us both. "Jake, he's not just someone I knew. He has something I need to tell you, something you won't believe." And just like that, the ground shifted again, more questions piling on top of each other, waiting for answers not just from her, but from myself. In that pivotal moment, I realized that the heartbreak I feared was just the beginning, and I stood on the precipice of an unraveling truth. The air hung heavy, thick with unsaid words and the aftermath of Jake's departure. My heart raced, knee-deep in confusion and rage, but it was Jess's trembling lips that captivated my attention. The way her eyes glistened with unshed tears urged me to bridge the chasm steadily widening between us. "Tell me," I urged, my voice steadier than my heart felt. "What is it that I won't believe?" Her breath quivered as she took a step closer to me, the space between us crackling with electricity. "It's just the key." "It's not just a key, Jake. It represents something more. It ties us together, me and him, in a way I didn't foresee." My stomach flipped as the weight of her words sank in. "Ties you together?" I echoed, incredulous. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, biting her lip, as if she could taste the bitterness of the truth. "Before I met you, I made a choice," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "One that I believed I could bury. I thought I could start fresh. But Jake, he's not just a history. He's part of my Lithia life. I was incredibly naive to think I could escape. What kind of choice?" The question spilled from my lips, raw and desperate. "What did you choose? Was it him?" Jess took a deep breath, collecting her thoughts like scattered fragments of an uncompleted puzzle. "No," she said firmly, "but it involved him. I was drawn into his world, one that involved a debt, promises made, and now he's back." The room felt too small as revelation crashed through me. "Debt? You mean, money?" Her face paled, realization dawning upon her that the truth was heavier than she anticipated. "Not just money. It was more dangerous than that," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "I thought I could shut the door and forget. But opening up to you stirred all of it back. You don't know how hard it was to keep this secret, the fear of dragging you into it. That it doesn't matter now if I know." I wanted to scream, desperation pooling in my chest. "Jake is still a threat. What does that key unlock? Some part of your past that you thought was forever closed?" "Yes." Jess's voice broke under the weight of her confession, and she stepped forward, making the tiniest attempt to bridge the emotional gap. "It unlocks memories, fear, the risk that Jake isn't done. That key could lead to a payment he thinks I owe him. A payment I hoped would vanish with time, but now, it's here." The pieces began falling into place, and with each connection came a fresh wave of anger towards Jake, mixed with the pain that was sprouting in my chest toward Jess. "You never told me, and he knew." I fought to keep my voice steady. "I can't just stand by knowing he holds something over you." Jess stepped closer, reaching out to clasp my hand, the warmth of her touch igniting a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. "I don't want to go back to that life, Jake. I've changed. I love you, and believe me, I never wanted it to come this far. Please help me understand how to make it right." But her surrender only deepened my own fears. "Sharing a life with someone is built on trust, and I feel like I barely know you now." It felt like a betrayal to say those words, but they hung between us, sharp and truth-laden. In that moment of raw vulnerability, Jess pulled me closer, desperation gleaming in her eyes. "I can prove to you that I choose you. This doesn't define us. We can work through this together." As she held my gaze, I yearned to believe her, to push past the tangled web of doubt. Yet, the echo of Jake's haunting voice reverberated in the back of my mind. "Think wisely about how you choose to trust." The room felt suffocating, the walls closing in as a new wave of questions rolled over me. What would it mean for us if I chose to stand by her side? Would I be swept into a storm I wasn't prepared to weather? Suddenly, Jess' phone buzzed on the table beside us, jolting me out of my tumultuous thoughts. She recoiled, glancing at the screen before her face drained of color. "No," she whispered, a wave of panic washing over her. "What is it?" I demanded, the urgency entwined with fear clawing at my insides. "It's him," she said, voice trembling. "Jake. He's messaged me." That I felt the ground tilt beneath me, and part of me wanted to flee. Staring at the phone, I realized that whatever threads bound us together were about to unravel further. In that moment, as Jess lifted the phone, my heart raced not just with fear, but with the terrifying uncertainty of what was to come. Her thumb hovered over the screen, shaking. What if he's made this worse? Open it, I urged gently, though my heartbeat echoed warnings. We need to know. And as she pressed her thumb to the screen, plunging us into the unknown, I braced myself for whatever revelation lay ahead, knowing it could change everything. The phone buzzed insistently between us, the sound slicing through the fragile tension that hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Jess' face was a canvas of fear and hesitation, and I felt my heart sink with each moment that slipped by. I can't, she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. I can't just open this, Jess, we need to know what he's saying, I insisted, my throat tightening as I put my hand over hers. There was a part of me that wanted to pull away, to break the bond that felt like it was being manipulated by someone who shouldn't have any power over us. But here we were, standing in a brink of destruction shaped by Jake's return, a man I had never wanted to contend with but now couldn't escape. With a deep breath and fingers trembling, she finally pressed down on the screen, and the light of her phone illuminated her face in a pale glow. I could see the instant change in her expression. Shock morphed into devastation as she read aloud the words that echoed in our small, dim space. That I know where you are, Jess. It's time to settle the debt. Meet me tonight at the old warehouse on 5th, the words landed like a punch, and the room plunged into silence. I pulled my hand away, gripping my own arms in a feeble attempt to instill some sense of strength against the enormity of what we faced. Jess, I began slowly, but the anger and betrayal twisted in my gut. What happens if you don't go? What does he mean by debt? This is dangerous. Tears spilled over her eyelashes, spilling down her cheeks like light raindrops on parched earth. I don't know what else he wants. It was always vague, the contracts, the promises. I thought if I stayed away long enough. Her voice caught in her throat, and I saw the crushing weight of regret in her eyes. The love I had for her felt like a flickering candle besieged by a relentless wind. I wanted to shield Jess from this nightmare, but a more terrifying thought gripped me. What if I couldn't? What if we go together? I proposed, my heart racing with the implications of such an act. We can confront him. You don't have to face this alone. She shook her head vehemently. No. If it's with you, it might make it worse. He might see you as leverage, as a way to punish me more seriously. I can't put you at risk. Jess, you're already risking everything by even entertaining this. Don't you understand? Each word rang with desperation, but beneath that desperation lay a foundation of love that craved to protect her. We need to devise a plan that doesn't involve fear, not just running. But she was slipping away from me even as she stood before me, glued to the ground under the weight of Jake's threat. What if this is all I deserve? She murmured, her shoulders slumping under an unseen burden. Maybe this cycle was always meant to come back around to me. I thought I could escape it, but here we are. No. I shouted, startling her. You deserve so much more than this fearful existence. You deserve a life without shadows clinging to you. We aren't defined by our pasts. You and I thought that too, she interrupted, frustration boiling over in her tone. I thought love could shield me. But I was wrong. A sudden sound in the distance broke our vicious cycle of despair, a soft knock at the door. Jess and I exchanged alarmed glances, both bracing as if for impact. Who could that be? She whispered sharply, fear threading through her voice. Stay here, I urged, silently cursing the uncertainty swirling around us. I crept toward the door, hyper-aware of the heaviness spiraling in my veins. With slow hesitation, I turned the knob and found a stranger standing on the threshold, an air of urgency cloaked in worry framing their features. Are you Jake? He asked, eyeing me critically, a flicker of recognition passing through his gaze. No, I responded swiftly, stepping in front of Jess protectively. Then you need to listen, he continued, his voice low. This isn't just about her. Jake is more powerful than you realize. If you love her, you need to get her out of here tonight. That I felt Jess' breath hitch behind me, and I turned slightly, seeking her. In the corner of my vision. How do you know this? I used to be involved in his world, the stranger admitted reluctantly. I wish I could say I broke free, but luck isn't on my side. I don't want her to be next. You have to act fast. It's already set in motion. Get her somewhere safe. My heart raced painfully against my ribcage, and the shadows of doubt collided with newfound urgency. Jess' fear was palpable, but what would it mean to leave? To run? Just as I opened my mouth to speak, another message chimed through her phone, cutting through the fear like a knife. It's him again, she gasped, trembling hands reaching for the device. But there was an exchange of glances between me and the stranger that spoke volumes. I wasn't just fighting for her in this battle. We were nearly out of time, and a decision had to be made. Open it, I urged, but my own heart pounded with the inevitability that whatever lay ahead could determine our futures. As Jess swiped at the screen, I felt a growing dread settle over me, knowing all too well that we might be teetering on the edge of a precipice, and with the next revelation, there could be no turning back. The silence that followed the chime of Jess' phone exploded into an anxious flurry. I felt my heartbeat reverberate through my chest, a frantic drum in a cacophony of uncertainty. As she read through the message, her expression broke into a mask of horror, a reaction potent enough to steal the breath from my lungs. That I know about him. You think you can hide? I've uncovered your little secret. Meet me alone or he pays the price. Her voice trembled, each word a nail driving deeper into the fragile barrier we had erected to shield ourselves from the storm. I turned sharply to the stranger, who looked unusually calm despite the chaos. What does he mean by that? Who is he? The stranger exhaled slowly, a bitter recognition crossing his face. Jake likes to play games. If you care about her, you should know he often sits back and watches the fun unfold. He could be talking about anyone in her life. It's all strategic. Fun. I shot back, fiery anger lacing my tone. There's nothing fun about this. My eyes flicked to Jess, who stood petrified, her grip tightening on the phone. It was like she was trapped in a glass box, breathing but separate from the world outside. Jess, I pleaded, stepping closer, desperate to draw her back from the precipice of despair where she seemed poised to plummet. We can go to the police. We can. Oh. She interrupted sharply, panic flaring in her eyes. You don't understand. The system doesn't protect people like me. It just opens the door for retaliation. I can't bring you into this mess. Not again, don't you see? This is bigger than us. I can't just stand here and let you walk into danger alone. My voice edged on the precipice of a pleading shout, wrestling with the realization that love alone might not be enough. Then what do we do? Jess' voice quaked, her distress palpable, mirroring the chaos that enveloped us. The stranger stepped forward, reaching out to gently close her phone, tucking it away as if hiding a weapon. We leave. Right now. You won't predict Jake's next move, but you can remove yourself from the game. Sometimes the best strategy is to vanish, to let the storm move on without you. Where? I asked, the revolution of thoughts crashing in my mind. How could we simply run? Where can we go? Somewhere he would never think to look, he suggested, his expression unwavering yet urgent. I know a place. It's not far, a cabin in the woods abandoned. I was looking there when I realized I needed to break away. Are you sure about this? I challenged. The spark of fear ignited doubts in me. What if he finds us? What if he won't? The stranger insisted, his voice steady. Listen, you need to choose courage over fear. Love means making sacrifices, sometimes it means running. And sometimes, it means trusting a stranger to guide you. Jess glanced at me, her eyes reflecting a kaleidoscope of emotions: uncertainty, fear, and a small flicker of hope. What do you think? She asked. I weighed the heat of the moment, the labyrinth of consequences unfurling before me like a dark path. Escape felt treacherous, but so did staying. I think we have nothing left to lose, I finally asserted, my voice steadier than I felt. Let's go. Good, the stranger said, urgency threading his tone. Do you have your things packed? We need to move swiftly before he realizes you're gone. Wait, Jess interjected suddenly, glancing back to the apartment. I can't just leave everything behind. What about Jess? We can't afford to think about things right now, I pressed gently yet firmly. Well, figure that out later. Your safety comes first. With shaky hands and a heart heavy with unease, she grabbed a small bag from the corner. I could barely contain the worry twisting inside my gut. What were we leaving behind? What kind of ghosts would follow us? As we hastily slipped out the door into the dimly lit hallway, I caught a glimmer of something, a photograph left behind on the mantel, a reminder of happier times. The dream of a life we once pictured together faded like the setting sun, a faint memory. The stranger led the way down the stairwell, each step feeling like a descent into the unknown. When we stepped outside, the cool air hit us, sharp and invigorating. I looked over at Jess, clutching her bag like a lifeline. She mirrored my uncertainty, yet within her eyes sparked an ember of defiance. Suddenly, an intense light swung into view, bright and blinding. The sound of tires screeching made my blood run cold. A car slid into the alley, and I recognized the shape and tainted aura instantly, Jake's vehicle. Run! The stranger shouted, and before I could process the danger, Jess and I took off, pumping our legs as adrenaline coursed through our veins like wildfire. With echoes of dread chasing behind us, I clutched her hand, our connection solid and fierce against the rising chaos, but as we raced on, a final text buzzed through Jess's phone, a new message from Jake. This one chilling in its implication. You can't hide forever, Jess. I will find you. Just like I found him. In that instant, I realized the deeper danger that accompanied our flight. We were not just running away from him, we were running towards something dark and unrelenting. As we disappeared into the night, a question loomed heavy in my mind: was love truly enough to shield us from the shadows of our past? The woods loomed ahead like an ancient fortress, the trees standing sentinel beneath the twilight sky. Jess and I kept running, swallowed by the thickening darkness, her breaths mingling with mine in a frantic rhythm that echoed the panic swelling in my chest. The fear that gripped us was palpable, a choking reminder of the very real threat trailing in our wake. Where is this cabin? I gasped between breaths, glancing over my shoulder. The flicker of headlights had vanished, but I could still feel Jake's presence, a malevolent shadow extending far beyond the reach of light. Just a little further, the stranger assured us, leading the way with a confidence that felt alien amidst our chaos. My heart clawed at my ribs, torn between the trial of trust and the flickering hope of safety. After what felt like an eternity, we broke through the trees into a small clearing. The cabin stood before us, a dilapidated structure that appeared to sag under the weight of secrets. Dim light flickered in the window, casting an eerie glow that could either be a beacon of safety or a trap set to ensnare us. Jess hesitated, pulling back slightly. Are you sure this is safe? She whispered, a tremor of doubt threading through her voice. No one comes here, the stranger replied, his tone unyielding but calm. Trust me, both of you. I've been here before. It's isolated. Just like you want it to be, Jess murmured, an edge of vulnerability seeping through her defenses, revealing cracks in her facade that I hadn't noticed before. Exactly, he answered softly, his gaze shifting to her. It's time for both of you to find a way to breathe again. My fingers tightened around hers, a silent vow to shield her from whatever horrors loomed ahead. The door creaked ominously as the stranger pushed it open. Inside, the air smelled of damp wood and forgotten memories. Shadows danced along the walls, and for a moment, it felt like entering a sanctuary swathed in despair. Before I could center my thoughts, the stranger rummaged through a small kitchen drawer, revealing some old flashlights and a canister of what looked like cooking supplies. Make yourselves comfortable, he offered, a flicker of warmth in his eyes. I'll set up a light. Jess drifted toward the window, her breath fogging the glass as she peered through it into the dark, searching its depths for any sign of danger. Will he come here? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He could, I admitted, looking away from her shadowed reflection. But for now, we should focus on staying calm and thinking of a plan. She turned sharply, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Calm. She echoed bitterly. This isn't a time for calm. I feel like I'm losing everything, and I don't know how to fight him. Jess, listen to me, I pleaded, stepping towards her. We can do this together. We can fight him, but you need to believe in us. In you. You're stronger than you think, and I know you feel helpless, but now is not the time to give in. As she took in my words, I saw her resolve flicker, like a candle in a storm. What if we're not enough? She whispered, her vulnerability washing over me like a tide. In that instant, our focus shifted. We weren't just running away, we were fighting against a cycle of violence that threatened to consume us. The weight of that realization settled over us, heavy yet illuminating. Before I could respond, the stranger, having overheard our exchange, stepped closer, joining our circle of urgent whispers. Your strength is in how you face him, not in running. You fight with love, desperation. It's powerful. Jess nodded slowly, the flame within her slowly reigniting. What if we use his own games against him? She contemplated, her brow furrowed in determination. Like a trap? I asked, a plan slowly brewing in my mind. But we need to be out of sight. If he discovers we're here. The stranger interrupted, the glint of strategy lighting his eyes. It's not just about a trap, he said thoughtfully, it's about drawing him out to fight on our terms. He thinks he has the upper hand because you're afraid. But if you take that fear and turn it into something he doesn't expect. Jessa's face brightened slightly. We could set up a decoy. Something to pull him in while we're safe. Yes, exactly. I cheered, relieved to see her spirit rekindled amidst the shadows that threatened to swallow us. I could see plans unfolding in her mind, and I felt a rush of hope surge within me. But we need time. We need. A chilling roar sliced through the darkness outside, followed by the crunch of footsteps crunching through leaves. Stay low, stay quiet, the stranger instructed, instantly dropping into a crouch as if he were a soldier preparing for battle. My heart dropped. Jake wasn't giving up. He had tracked us faster than we anticipated. I shared a glance with Jess, our resolve hardening in silence. The flicker of hope battled against the cold grip of fear as we realized our fight was just beginning, not ending. The sound of heavy breathing drew closer, a predator closing in on its prey. I wanted to tell Jess we'd get through this, that love would shine brighter than any shadow. But I knew that the fight for our lives was more profound than either of us could have imagined. Then I heard a familiar voice cutting through the clamoring dread. I hope you're ready for a reunion. Because I've got a few surprises for you both. What clung to my thoughts in that heart-stopping moment was the crushing realization. What if Jake didn't come alone? What if he had more tricks up his sleeve, and worse, what if he had already ensnared the very people we loved? As the cabin doors creaked under the onslaught of fists pounding just outside, the truth hit harder than any blow. This was no longer just a fight for survival, it was a battle for everything we held dear. And I wasn't sure we would all emerge unscathed. The cabin's wooden walls trembled with each thunderous thump against the door, leaving a haunting echo that melded with my rising dread. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being cornered, prey to a more significant, insidious force. Jess whimpered softly, her eyes darting toward the window where only darkness greeted her gaze. I squeezed her hand, trying to impart as much bravery as I could muster, though I felt my own heart thudding violently in my chest. Stay quiet, I whispered urgently, forcing my voice to remain steady. I turned to the stranger, who remained unmoved, his focus unwavering on the door like a beast poised to pounce. Do you have a plan? He nodded, his expression grim but resolute. I'll take the lead. If he's outside, we'll need to either lure him away or incapacitate him. We were all caught in the storm of dread and uncertainty, shadows threatening to engulf us whole. I could feel Jess' rising anxiety, it rippled through her body, radiating from her fingertips to mine. What if he finds us? What if, she trailed off, biting back tears, something might happen that we don't expect, I said softly, trying to keep hope alive. We're together, Jess. That matters more than you think. Just then, a crash resonated from outside, splintering my fragile resolve. The door rattled on its hinges, a potential breach that could unleash Jake's wrath upon us. I glanced out the window but only glimpsed the billowing fog that swirled like a living creature, swallowing us up. Suddenly, there was a thud against the wall that made the entire cabin shudder, and the stranger forced a breath through gritted teeth. "On my count, we need to rush for the back door. He won't expect that." "It's our only chance." Jess squeezed my hand tighter, a move born from fear, but her eyes sparked with a flicker of defiance. "What if he follows us?" she asked, voice lowered to a fierce intensity. "Then we fight," I replied, fierce determination settling in the pit of my stomach. Together, the stranger raised his hand, signaling us to prepare. As the pounding outside grew louder, each thump like a primal drum echoing our fleeting time, he counted, 1, 2, 3, we bolted toward the back door, hearts racing with adrenaline and trepidation. I swung the door wide open, and we spilled into the night, cold air cutting at our skin like shards of glass. But just as we stepped outside, Jess stumbled, the pain etched across her face not from the chill but from something deeper. I turned just in time to catch her, my heart crashing as I sensed a ripple of anxiety spiral through her body. "What's wrong?" I asked urgently. I can't breathe," she confessed, panic lacing her voice, her hands trembling violently. Before I could reach for her, the shadows at the edge of the clearing shifted, and a low chuckle echoed around us. The stranger's reflexes kicked in, and he stood before us, shielding Jess with his body. "Did you really think you'd escape so easily?" Jake's voice boomed, full of malice and mirth, like a twisted melody dancing on the wind. Fear surged through me as I watched Jess grimace in agony. The world felt heavy, and the night thickened with tension like a web constricting our movements. "We're not afraid of you," I bellowed back, trying to project strength I didn't feel. "Not afraid?" Jake laughed, the sound chillingly joyous as if we were mere entertainers in his dark spectacle. "You should be. You see, I've been preparing for this moment, and you two are just pawns in a far larger game." A glimmer of hope flickered in Jess's eyes as she found her voice. "What do you mean?" she demanded fiercely, shifting her weight to defy him, refusing to let her fear win. "You've lost control. We're not your prisoners anymore." He stepped closer, a predator stalking its prey. "Lost control? Oh, my dear, you don't understand. This is about more than you. You're just the beginning." My stomach knotted as I felt the weight of his words sink in. "What are you talking about?" Jake's smile widened, and in that moment, the darkness around us deepened, the air growing electric with a sinister energy. "In time. You'll see. I've placed an unwelcome mark upon you, one that goes far beyond mere fear. It will all unravel soon." Jess's eyes were wide, and I could see the panic spike again. You can't control us." The stranger adjusted his stance, brandishing the flashlight like a weapon. "We won't let you take anything from us," he declared, resolute in the face of unfathomable darkness. As he spoke, a tremor ran through the ground beneath our feet, an unsettling reminder of the shadows surrounding us. The night seemed to pulse with a life of its own, and then I felt a wave of vulnerability crashing over me. What if he really did know something we didn't? Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my eye. I turned to see a darkness rising behind Jake, shadows converging like a living tide, creeping into our space. "What have you done?" I shouted, voice rising in panic, but the shadows swirled with a mind of their own, hungry and eager. No. Jess cried, stepping forward, a desperate instinct guiding her. "You release us from this. We are not yours." But before she could take another step, the shadows lunged forward in one swift, encapsulating motion. A shriek escaped my lips as I lunged to grab her, but the shadows swallowed her into an abyss. "Jess." The word tore from me in a desperate plea, a raw realization settling upon my heart. As I stood frozen in horror, Jake's laughter echoed like thunder in the distance, mingling with the chaos that ensued. "What have you done?" I felt a burning agony coil within me, morphing into a seething rage. We had been tested in ways I never imagined, and now it felt like the very fabric of our reality was unraveling. In an instant, the night deepened, a chasm dividing us from everything we fought for. And I stood on the precipice, an uncertain survivor entrusted with a new, heartbreaking truth. I would have to go deeper into the dark, risking everything to unravel the secrets that threatened to consume Jess and me forever. The cabin's silhouette loomed behind me, a fragile sanctuary now overshadowed by the malevolence lurking in the dark. I stood at the edge of the clearing, breathless and bewildered, my heart racing as the absence of Jess clawed at my chest. It felt like a part of me had been severed, leaving an empty ache that pulsed with each passing second. Jake's laughter echoed still, a cruel reminder that he was watching, waiting for the moment I crumbled. Rage burned brightly in my veins, a fierce determination igniting in the face of despair. I wouldn't let him win. I would find Jess. Before I could take a step into the darkness, I felt that cold chill dart past me again, a sensation that brushed against my skin, sending shivers down my spine. Behind me, the stranger remained a vigilant guardian, his face illuminated by the soft beam of the flashlight that now trembled in his hand. "We need to find her," he urged, his voice firm yet tinged with uncertainty. "What if it's too late?" I whispered, fear choking my words. "What if she's—" I couldn't allow myself to finish that thought. "I couldn't accept it. She's strong," he replied, his eyes steady and resolute. "If there's anyone who can withstand Jake's darkness, it's her. But we need to move." Now, with a newfound urgency, we pushed into the oppressive shadows together, the thick fog swirling around us like a demented waltz. I kept my thoughts on Jess, envisioning her, that spark of life that filled every moment with meaning. I could hear her laughter in my mind, the way her eyes glittered with mischief, her determination unwavering. It grounded me, reminding me that hope still existed amid the chaos. As we ventured deeper into the thicket, the trees became skeletal figures under the thin slivers of moonlight. The deeper we went, the more the shadows wrapped themselves around our ankles, threatening to pull us under. I stumbled, nearly losing my balance, but the stranger steadied me with a firm grip. "Focus," he urged. "Don't let the darkness in. Remember, we're fighting for something good." Just then, a glimmer caught my eye, something shiny wedged into the earth. I knelt down, brushing away the damp leaves, revealing what appeared to be a small, silver locket. My breath hitched as I opened it, the faint sound of Jess's voice echoing in my mind. "Never lose hope, okay?" I clutched the locket tightly, refusing to let the darkness snuff out her light. "This is hers," I whispered, my heart soaring for an instant before fear threatened to drag me back down. I looked up at the stranger, my resolve hardening. "We need to keep going." "This is a sign," that he nodded, and without speaking another word, we plunged further into the night. I could feel the presence of something sinister lurking around us, always one step ahead. Each breath became a battle against anxiety radiating from the shadows that seemed to stretch like fingers reaching for the light. Then, in the distance, I heard her scream, a pitiful wail that sliced through the air, slicing through the fog as if it had shattered the very fabric of reality. "Jess!" My heart seized as adrenaline coursed through my body like molten fire. "Back this way!" I called out, yanking the stranger toward the sound. We raced through the trees, branches clawing at our clothes, roots threatening to trip us as we closed in on her desperate cries. As we breached a clearing, my heart dropped at the sight. Jess was on the ground, struggling against ethereal shadows coiling around her limbs. She was fighting, a true testament to her strength, but the darkness seemed relentless, dragging her closer to the abyss. "Jess!" I shouted, lunging toward her. But before I could reach her, the shadows flared like wildfire, consuming me as fear clawed at my insides. "No!" I howled, extending my hand, desperate to grasp her, to pull her away from the edge. "Stay back!" she cried, her voice strained yet fierce. "You'll only get yourself caught." Even in her turmoil, she was fighting for me. "Together, Jess!" I shouted back urgently. "We can fight it together." The stranger seemed to understand our urgency. "Hold on!" he cried, rushing towards her, flashlight trembling as he swung it toward the shadows, illuminating them in a fierce, glaring beam. "No. You don't get to play with the light," Jake's voice taunted yet again, echoing through the clearing, thick with malice. "You think you can save her? You're making a mistake." The shadows writhed, as if Jake's words were a spell that drove them into a frenzy. Jess groaned, her body bucking against the pull of the darkness, but I saw fire in her eyes, a refusal to be a pawn in Jake's twisted game. "Focus, Jess," I implored, feeling the weight of the shadows pressing down on me. "Pull. Push against it with everything you have." With sheer determination glowing within, she inched closer, fighting against the malevolent grasp that threatened to pull her apart. I held on to the locket, close to my heart, that symbol of us, a reality that transcended the darkness. But then, in an instant, everything began to shift. Jake stepped forward, his presence magnified, and with a wave of his hand, he transformed shadows into tendrils, grasping and twisting in the air. "Let's see how loyal you truly are," he chuckled darkly, a glint of malice dancing in his eyes that I felt a horror deep within me as I watched Jess' resolve waver just for a moment. "No," I whispered, panic enveloping my spirit. "Jess, stay strong," she screamed, her voice breaking through the cacophony of darkness surrounding us. And then suddenly, where her fear had begun to infiltrate, I caught a glimpse, a flash of light breaking through the darkness, illuminating the tendrils that bound her, setting the stage for a reckless dance of hope amidst despair. This was our moment. But a horrible twist struck me as I felt a tangible shift beneath my feet, the ground erupting into a rift as Jake laughed, drawing me closer into a void where her screams echoed eerily. "Will you choose loyalty? Or will you become a part of my darkness?" The shadows flared, magnets of an unseen force tugging at my very essence, and I felt the world begin to spin around us. That in that moment, I understood that the game Jake spoke of was much more treacherous than I had imagined. It was a test, a battle of wills that would decide the fate of Jess, and of us, as the shadows hungered for ownership of our fears. Then, just as I thought all hope was lost, a sudden burst of light erupted from Jess, a fierce glow that cut through the suffocating darkness like a blade. I could see her clearly now, lips moving with purpose, words of strength streaming from her as if she had summoned the very essence of hope together. She shouted, "Remember! We are more than this." Beyond the precipice of despair, she called to me, her voice bridging the gap between shadow and light, beckoning me to push through, to refuse the cage Jake had crafted, and in that moment, as the shadows surged and threatened to swallow the last vestiges of hope, I was left with only one thought: if this was truly a test, I would turn it into our greatest strength. But as the light began to pulse, threatening the hold Jake had over us, a chilling realization gripped me. In the center of that struggle, I sensed another force, awakening, a whisper of something far more ominous than Jake, something gripping me with terror, tightening its hold that I could feel it ripple through the air, a darker presence that darkened our space, which threatened to eclipse Jess' light. Just as hope grasped at the edges, I understood this was merely the beginning of a fight deeper than we had ever known. "Jess!" I cried, my heart crashing against my ribcage as I braced for whatever was coming. "We need to prepare." Just as I focused on the light, I felt the air shift, the trees around us beginning to tremble, and the very shadows themselves whispering warnings of something lurking, something that had awoken in response to our defiance. Then, just as I was about to embrace the light, a last chilling message echoed through me, deeper than Jake's laughter, wrapping around me like a snake. "You made a choice, and choices come with consequences." The darkness beneath me erupted, pulling us further into the chasm of uncertainty, and as I looked back to Jess, fear began to morph into a heavy dread that mixed with the raw sting of love. What terrible truth awaited us? It loomed over me like a shroud, and I knew in that moment, everything about our bond, our choice, and our very lives were precariously tipping on that ever-fraying edge. The emotional cliffhanger tightened within me. Jake was merely a pawn in this grander scheme of darkness, but the real battle was yet to be revealed. I stood at the precipice of that abyss, the truth curling around my heart like a serpent. Jess was trapped in shadows that slithered against her skin, but I felt a tether pulling her light through darkness, unyielding and fierce. I could sense the change within her, the spark of understanding igniting her spirit even as an ominous force writhed to claim us both, together. Jess surged with energy, her voice a raw force of defiance against the dark. I mirrored her resolve, straining against the tendrils that sought to encase me, the gravity of despair clawing at my very soul. Deep in my heart, I knew this wasn't just a battle against Jake, it was a confrontation with every shadow that had ever lingered over our love, but then came that whisper of dread, a chilling breath against the back of my neck, warning that Jake would not fight alone. "What have you unleashed?" he taunted, bitterness dripping from his words like venom. The shadows writhed, tension shifting the air into a labored struggle. "Look around you. Darkness knows no bounds, it will consume you." His presence welled in the space, unwinding like a coiled snake preparing to strike. "Jess!" I shouted against the enveloping despair, my voice breaking at the sight of her struggling against the force that sought to bind her to the past. But there was defiance resting in her tear-streaked face, a blazing resolve that dared to challenge the enveloping void. "You can't take her!" I screamed, thrusting forward, willing space and darkness to yield between us, pushing against the shadows that "I am not taking her, Jake." She roared back, her strength seemingly magnified. "I am choosing to be free." The very essence of her words pierced the gloom, fueling the burgeoning flames of light that sparked in my chest. I closed my eyes, focusing on the warmth of her spirit, the way it danced within me. Love, I realized, could outshine even the deepest shade if we surrendered to it entirely, and so, in that cocoon of conflict, I opened my heart as wide as it could possibly stretch. I surrendered the fear, the doubt, the history that Jake wanted to keep us trapped in. "You don't own us," I declared, combining our wills into one powerful chorus. I stepped toward Jess, determination pulsing through me like a heartbeat. With every ounce of love I held, I reached out my hand, our fingertips grazing through the yawning emptiness. "We are not defined by our shadows, we are the light." Together. In that moment, the darkness seemed to waver, responding to the power of our union. "No. This isn't how it ends." Jake erupted, fury distorting his features, shadows swirling violently as if responding to his chaos. But Jess and I held our ground, breathing life into the flickering light that sought to pierce through the endless black. The shadows snapped further around Jess, but I could see her the way her spirit shimmered like an ember gathering heat. I could feel the pulsing tether of hope growing stronger, tethered between us, creating a lifeline that spanned a chasm that sought to separate us. I shouted into the madness, "Jess, remember the locket." At the invocation of that memory, her eyes lit up even amidst the chaos. Gripping the symbol like a beacon, she cried, "No matter where we go, love binds us." A radiant force spiraled outward, feeding off our shared warmth. With a single surge, we thrust our joined energies against Jake, against every shadow that sought to snatch away our essence. Then, something utterly unexpected occurred. A bright crack tore through the dark, a fissure of pure light blossoming like a flower in defiance of winter. It spread rapidly, illuminating the space around us, our joined hearts erupting into a storm of brilliancy, a raw energy propelled by the depth of our love. The darkness shrieked in protest, retreating like mist before the sun. The shadows recoiled, shifting away from Jess, scrambling back into the deeper recesses from where they came, shrieking, "You cannot escape your debt. Your past will come back for you." But through it all, we stood firm, the tether between us now reinforced with a fierce grip of shared promises, a testament of our bond that would not be broken. Breathless from the battle intertwined with exultation, I reached for just the power of our connection illuminating the air. "We did it," I whispered, as the remnants of shadows fled, but behind us, Jake's laughter rose again, echoing with desperation. "You think this is over? You cannot triumph over darkness. It'll return." The words reverberated into the night as the last remnants of his presence dissolved into the ether, leaving us trembling and breathless in the aftermath. We stood side by side, trembling yet rooted, the dawn stretching out beyond the horizon, pouring golden rays through the trees that had once felt so suffocating. Jess turned to me, reflecting that beautiful light in her eyes, and I saw the weight of doubt and fear lift from her shoulders, unveiling a strength forged amidst the chaos that I know now. She breathed, stepping closer. "We define our paths together. That darkness, those shadows, they don't own us. We're more than that." "Always," I affirmed, taking her hands gently, pulse synchronizing, hearts thudding as one. The bond we forged amidst the tempest had anchored us to something more profound, a loving acceptance that would transcend even the darkest hours. And in that moment, I knew this was not the end but merely the beginning of a journey reborn. We would carve through whatever shadows lurked, united in our fierce commitment to one another. The unexpected twist of torment had forged something unbreakable, and as dawn broke above the treetops, bathing us in light, the promise of tomorrow glimmered anew. Life had a funny way of leading us through chaos, testing our resolve. But together, Jess and I were not just enduring shadows, we were the light breaking through, and with that realization, as we took our first steps into a promised tomorrow, I turned to her, breathing in the warmth of love and hope that danced in the air, and I quietly vowed, no matter what lies ahead, we will always choose our light. And with that promise lingering in the dawn, we walked forward into a horizon painted with the colors of resilience, leaving behind the echoes of shadows as a reminder of our strength, a testament that together, we would always find our way home.